I was joined awake about an hour ago, confused and disoriented. My heart was pounding and my sheet was soaked in sweat. Some slavering male violent horror was in the trailer with me, creeping up on me while I slept with poised claw and razor teeth. The absolute certainty of this coated my mouth with the metallic taste of fear, sour and dry and thick. I grabbed the baseball bat that lay beneath my cot and tiptoed around the cramped darkness of my trailer, straining to hear over the kneeling of the wind outside and the pounding of my own heart. Of course, there was nothing here except my goldfish and you truly, the sweaty guy in his underwear. It was the gusting wind that started me awake. It's happening quite often in the late autumn and early winter. The winds ripped through the scrub of skateboard or tree that surround the trailer park and charged with a lion roar into our lonely huddle of frail little shelter. It quivers and shrink and pile on our walls with fists of dead leaf and frozen grit, specified that I wasn't about to become chow for some unspeakable creature. I laid back down on my squeaky, saggy old cot and tried to get back to sleep, but I couldn't. Instead, I found myself thinking about that night in the penitentiary, the night of the lockdown. I kept thinking about Mikey and Big Rob and the rest of them. All of us huddled in a cell, with the lights off and the frigid northwest wind howling at the wall. After a while, I gave up trying to sleep. Instead, I sat down in front of the computer and I started typing. I'm no storyteller, not like Mikey or Hutch, but I'll try my best. When I first came to the pen, the thing that struck me the most about the place was just how much the cons talk. On the occasion when I served time in the county jail, there had been talk, sure, but I was trained and impersonal when they're only serving a few months. I guess a lot of people feel the situation is too temporary to bother forging any tie with their fellow inmates. You play cards with your cellies, or you sit in the day room and watch TV in relative silence. The only time that there would ever be any noises or actions was when a scrap broke out over a card game. Fights were the only thing that passed as excitement in county. Every other movement of the day was composed of do, boring nothing, going in. You just hope that the food wouldn't be too bad and that your cellie wouldn't end up being a gang member or meth hate bikers waiting out a long patch of daytime. People in other words who might beat the shit out of you as a way to pass the hour. The pens too. It's an incredibly noisy, smelly, vocal environment. I remember very clearly the moment when my little group of new arrivals were let out of the fish tank and into our new home, a pod housing 200 inmates. I was overwhelmed by the deafening din of voices and activity, with the hack marchers, bundles in hand, out into the range. Of course, there were the obligatory cat calls and wolf whistling, but most of the cons seemed completely oblivious to us. They were too busy living the ebbs and flows of penitentiary life. Of course, this was not actually true. Can't see everything, and I mean everything, but they talk even more. My first cellie wanted both of my bell and my ass. In that order, that wasn't happening. I hammered him in the mouth and it was on. The fight spilled out of the cell and into the corridors of the pod. He was a big, tough old bull, but I had him leaking and his confidence was shaking. Before the CEO got to us, I managed to get the nasty old fuckface down onto the floor and was warming away on the back of his head and neck like a jackhammer. Then the hack got there, and one of them laid aside 12 bullets upside my skull. The kick knocked my brain clear over the moon. The world immediately went out of focus and it stayed that way for almost 12 hours. I spent the next 3 weeks in the hole for fighting, and when I got out, I was placed in a different pot. Word had got around that this fish wasn't exactly new, and that I had a mean right across. No one bothered to try and roll up on me in the yard that day, and when I sat down at shout with my nearly Sally and some of his boys, no one objected. I had been shaken, and I passed the test. I wasn't a punk or a sissy. I could sit with the men. Yeah, it's a different world. The pen is, and it has wildly different rules. You couldn't fully understand you unless you've been through there. It wasn't long before I settled into a routine up for a head count and shout up to work in the laundry, shout nap work out, shout, and then the struggle to fill the dead hour between supper and lights out. There wasn't much to do. They can't play cards, betting with tobaccos, bail, purchase from the consummately and individual, hand roll smoke, some watch TV and others watch the war. Some watch each other. Tensions were always high between the rival gang. Josephine Spike, what they liked to spike in bathroom. Daddies took their sugar boys into red cell or the shower, and they got some ass pussy while homeboy had watched for the cops. And there was, of course, a lot of talk of family back home, women had and lost, of misdeed proudly done. There were enough stories flying aloud that place to fill a library. My Sally was an old con named Mikey. He had originally been sentenced to 15 years for second-degree murder during a robbery, but he had gotten into so much trouble since landing in the pens that he managed to acquire an additional 10 years on top of that. Mikey was doing all day, and he made peace with that fact. A good cat, all in all a strange shooter who didn't fuck with a spike. The thing was, he killed just about anyone if he got it into his head that he wanted to. In early years, Mikey had been a trigger man for the bikers. He'd been convicted for the murder of 6 people and was suspected in 16 others, and I can well imagine that a number of them had probably been friends of his at one point or another. In certain circle, a good friend can become your murderer in the blink of an eye. That's the kind of people you do time with in maximum security. Mikey and his crew like nothing better than to spend a Sunday evening curled up in someone's cell, drinking Pruno and shooting the shit. Personally, I didn't care much for the hooch. It tastes like rotten garbage with a heavy fruit bouquet. But the story were welcome. When Mikey or one of his homeboys were on a roll, we could all forget ourselves and be somewhere else for a little while. As far as con go, they were good fucking guy. There were, and these bull sessions were the glue that held Mikey's crews together. I remember watching and listening for hours on the end, spellbound as Mikey or Big Robs or how wove a tapestry of words in the thin air around us. They make us roar with laughter, clean in rage, and even suddenly choke up in sadness. Some of those guys could play a man's emotions like a violin with their storytelling. They were master of the form. Most of the times, the story were pretty coarse, which was to be expected. Look where they were coming from, and occasionally they were downright fucking horrifying. But there's one in particular that I can remember word for word, quite literally. I can actually close my eye and see Mikey and Rob Hutch and the rest of them sitting there in the cell that night, all of us bathed in the sticky red glue of the emergency light and transfixed by what we were being told. This particular story liked to pop up in my head in the small dead hours of the night when the harsh wind of draft old November lashed and rocked my rusty little trailer hard enough to wake me up, as they did tonight. Coincidentally, It was on a November night, just like this when I heard this story. I was about a year into my 4-year sentence for armed robbery, and this was my second winter in the pens. I recall that the goddamn wind was cutting through the wall really badly that night, and the drafts were freezing our toe solid. There had been a murder that day, and the whole pens was on lockdown. All 5 pods and the protective custody unit too. Big Rob Hatch was a man who had his ear to the ground, that he had known that the lockdown was imminent. We had just enough time to make preparation for what was coming. Happy for a chance to hang out and get fucked up. 7 of us quickly hurried into his cell with our bedding, snacks from the commissary, and as much gear as we could get our hands on. I remember that we were all wrapped up in our thin, scratchy blanket like convict burritos. The blankets were grey and made from rough wool. Upon checking into the razor wire inn, you were issued one and one only in the winter. Blankets were a premium. Men would fight for them, sometimes even kill for them. Mikey and Big Rob were both sitting on the lower bunk. Coltrane and his kid Remy had the top ones. I was freezing at my ass on the floor along with Nick and Richie. The young pups have to sit on the floor. That's just the way it was. The old cons got to snuggle their asses into the relative comfort of the thin mattress that covered the squeaky spring slat, and in Coltrane's case, the old con bitch as well. We weren't complaining out loud about it though. We knew better than to do that. Big Rob was a trustee, and one of his duties was to mop the floor in the prison morgue. He was telling us what had happened when the coroner performed his autopsy on Slater. Slater was a junkie who had been suspected of ratting out various other cons to the cops in exchange for smack. He was the reason why the entire pens was on lockdown. He had been discovered in his bunk after lunch, dead as they old dog shit and full of ragged hole. The shift was found in the toilet in the shower room. It had been made from plastic bag, heated to melting with a beak, then compressed to form a sturdy, sharp little weapon. So I'm mopping out by where they were keep the gurney, and now they hold the door open a bit so I can see the dog leaning over Slater on the table. He humming and singing to himself like usual, and I'm smiling at how shitty his voice is, when all of a sudden the dog say, "Holy shit, would you look that kid dead?" And then he start gaining and reshedding. Then get this, then he actually screamed for real. He fucking screamed and he yelled, "Jesus Christ, it's all over my fucking arms!" He ran out of the room and down the other hall, and I'm like, what the fuck is that all about? I heard him yelling for his assistant or whatever they are, the younger one. They are come running back, and I heard one of the assistants say, "Oh fuck, you're gonna be kidding me!" Then the smell hit me from all the way down that long ass hallway, and it's period boy. It smelled like a combination of rotting flesh and an old shit house in August. I had to grab my nose and run the fuck out of here. Worst thing I ever smelled it. Nick asked, "What was it from?" and shift uncomfortably where he sat beside the toilet. He was a good bit younger than me. He just celebrated his 20th birthday a few months ago. It was his first time in, and he drawn the fucking short straw. 15 years age before he be considered for parole. His uncle, fortunately for Nick, was also serving time in the same facility. He was an upper echelon Hells Angel who ruled both B port and C port with an iron fist. As a result, Nick was getting the easiest ride a first timer to the pens ever had. Coltrane and Mikey had personality, welcomed the kid into the crew. As per the old man's order, he was fresh-faced and physically soft. I occasionally wonder if he ever really knows just how bad it could have been for him in there. Apparently, Big Rob said, rolling his voice to a husky state whisper, stuttered was getting checked for pokes and track mark pretty regular because he got busted so much for possession, so he started shooting in his ass. But not like in his ass check, ya dick. I mean right into the wall of his recum. He was shooting it right inside his fucking assholes, man. Can you imagine that? Pretty soon, he developed a fucking horrible abscess because of all the fecal bacteria and crap that was living up his old dirt road. The abscess got infected real bad. After a while, it skinned over with a crust of white blood cells and grossed up and balloons out into a giant pus bubbles. That bubbles got so big that it eventually closed up the poor fucker's ass, and I mean right fucking shut. He was apparently going around like that for week, man, for real week. It must have hurt like a bitch. So the dog saw something kind of bubbling out of the dead fucker assholes, and he propped it at it with his scalpel and pops out gushes and metric fuckloads of bloody green pus, full of dead bacteria and stinking like the devil ball sacks. Ah, fuck! That's just dirty, man. Mikey groaned and mimicked throwing up all over Hunches. We were all wrinkling our noses in disgust and shaking our head. Dirty was not nearly adequate for this disgusting image. That's on it, told my friend. That's on it. The worst part, he continued, was the fact that Stutler had been bunched up with this fucking push balloon for a few weeks or so. You know, it stormed up his shit canal when the dog popped that thing with his scalpel. Ah, hell, it was a literally shitstorm. It sprawled out of his ass like a high-pursuit horses. We regarded that image for a moment or two in a stunned silence. I feel a little ill. So fucking dirty! Mikey roared, and despite what I just heard, I had to laugh. Coltrane and the other joined in. Remy just looked disgusted. He was feeling his nail. Remy was no longer just another cell block punk, a weaker man that traded what he had to trade in order to get by in world dominated by strain. In recent months, he gone and went full-blown sissy. After a year or so of enduring the subsequent female role at the receiving end of Coltrane, Hawk Leg, Coltrane was, in fact, the one who turned Remy out in this first place. He finally stopped playing the part of a woman and was now living it. It was apparent that he started taking illicit female hormones. His arm hairs had thinned out, and it seemed that he had recently grown the barest suggestion of breast beneath his orange jumpsuit. By the time I got out of the pens, Remy had changed his name to Rianne, and was the wife of Get Ready for This, none other than Nick Uncle, the unofficial kings of Pot B and C. Rianne was known for causing savage fight among inmates who were waiting for his attentions. That incidentally was exactly how Coltrane ending up earning an unexpected early parole. A black door parole, as they call it, because you don't leave through the front gate when you're dead. So the dog got shit on by corpses, said Richie, in a slow and dreamy tone. It was puss-covered shit. That fuck up, man. Hey, do you think that happened a lot of him? Or like was that the first time? Richie had snorted some hydronormophone earlier, and now he has somewhere in the cloud, floating around with a stone grin on his face. Richie, that's just fucking. Mikey trailed off. Actually, it's a good question. Want some hooch, boy? I was just opening my mouth to say, fuck, no, and then there was a pop and everything was dark. The cons began yelling and hooting all across the pods, both tier on both sides. Big Rob yelled, shut up, you fucking idiot! It's just a blackout! For Christ's sakes, bite the fuck down! And for wonder, some of them actually did. The thing was, Big Rob Hodge was, well, just that, big. He was as big as a buffalo. I was surprised that the lower bunk could support both Rob and Mikey, who was not exactly small himself. The emergency light snapped on, soft and red and eerie. It made the common area of Seaport look like a scene from an apocalyptic horror film. We could see the guard standing there in the guard hut through the bulletproof glass, waiting to see how the cons were going to react to the power going out during a lockdown. Now, not only were we being subsequented in our cramped little cell for an undetermined length of time, we had also been reentered, unable to properly read a book. A number of the cons could actually read and did, or see your hands while playing cards, or even listen to the radio. For Christ's sakes, the hack was a dark figure swathed in dim red, his body language alert and poised for action. I'm pretty sure it was Robson who was the boss on hunt duty that night. Robson was a dead-eyed square jaw oaf without an ounce of empathy in his whole body, and he just so happened to have a 12-gauge shotgun on hand with a modified choke. I frequently hoped that no one would take it into their head to start some serious shit, because if they did, there was a good chance we'll all regret it. There was a lot of huddling and dog kicking around the pot, but it soon became apparent that the ruckus was just for show. It was half-hearted at best. We all silently thanked, however, might be listening, that the emergency reaction team wasn't going to be called in. The ART didn't fuck around. K was suited and anonymous in their wizard helmet. They marched into the pot and indiscriminately barged into cell after cell, busting head and whipping out teeth with their baton. Hell, you might even get shot, and the ERT shoot to kill. Richie's broke the silence. Man, I was getting real worried there. For a minute, if the fucking goon squad bust in here and fire all about shit, we'll be dead. Richie was doing 6 years for selling pills. The sentence for a second-time loser. Oxycontin and hydrocodone were his chemical of choice. Faced with the boredom of prison life, he started using the product he sold. He was straight up junkie by Christmas of that year. Mikey didn't care about anyone using junk. Would even have a little snort here and there himself. But he didn't like addict. No one bit. He cut Richie out of the crew. Eldered by junk, plagued by debt, weak and alone. Richie ended up bunking with some fella from the top tier across from us, the black tier in a maximum security penitentiary. This has unpleasant connotation. Business might occur between the color line, but that generally where any benign fertilization ends. You might not be racist when you're on the outside, but when you're inside, you don't have much choice. To the blunt, it's like this. If you're white, you stick with the whites. The blacks and Hispanic cons don't want to be your buddy, and vice versa. They are for a variety of reasons. A large number of hostility between the color line. They stomp the shit out of you, or worse. When we got word that Richie had been seen walking, his face cast down up the stair to that second tier. Well, we know Richie had heavy debt, forced to either trade himself or die. Richie has chosen life. Jesus, I feel horrible for how it ended for Richie. I still do. His despair last bit to clinging to his rigid moral existence only prolonged the inevitable. He was dead within a month. One day, after enduring his morning gang rape, something must have finally snapped in Richie's head. His will to live crumbled and fell. Richie stayed behind while his tormentor went down for morning child, and he stuck a spike in his arm, for the last arm, high as a kite. Richie then hurling himself from the corner post of the top bunk. He did it with a rope made of not talk together sock. I'm rambling now, aren't I? Sorry, I do that sometimes. You just have to bear with me. I guess I'm not good at this. Not like Mikey or Hutch. I'm just a lonely guy who can't sleep. Some night, when a shrinking wind could be mistaken for the wailing of lost soul, shaking and rattling the window in their frame. Even though I was released from the pen 15 years ago, I can't shake the feeling that I'm somehow still inside. But I suppose that we are imprisoned by something, on some level, aren't we? On nights like tonight, my prison is this rusty trailer. In my pathetic mental job of my divorce, my raw, red-eyed fury, unfocusing and impotent, its sorrow and regret. all night like tonight. My prison is the past, and my inability to leave it behind. So, there we all were, sitting there in the weird red gloom and listening to all the yelling and bullshit slowly die down. Richie Apori went on the nod, Nick balanced shoe on his head. We are Coco Coltrane start talking about the hockey game that was about to start. Then Apori shut up. We were on lockdown with no electricity. There would be no hockey game at that night. Not for us. We passed a J around, and when that one was Rogers, we passed another. Finally, Mikey spoke up and broke the silence. So, who's up for some Twilight Zone shit tonight? I got a good one for ya. You remember the last time the power went out, Hutch? Hutch shot him a dark look, then did something very unusual for a hat that con. He shouted, "You wanna tell the boy that story?" I doodled, man. Why not? Fuck! The lights are out, and the wind are howling out there. Perfect time for it. Okay, fuck it, let's do it. Big Rob cleared his throat and said, "Okay, boys, it's time for a scary story. Crawl on the fucking campfire and grab a cup of this fine wine." It's more brandy, I think, Hutch. Mikey grinned and offered me some condolently. I accept a styrofoam cup of the murky, eye-watering stuff and sailed myself to swallow it. I was feeling a bit happier now. I've always been a fan of spooky story. His voice stern. Mikey grunted. Okay, first thing first. This shit is 100% true. Got it? We're not bullshitting about any of these, for real. So don't tell us that we're full of shit or you can go have a fucking sleep over with that assholes over in the hack sack. Got it? Richie grunted, then flopped over onto the floor. He was out of it. This all went down a long time ago before any of you were here. At least 12 years, say Mikey. Yeah, for sure. At least. That's long back when these little punks were sitting giving out handjobs in juvie, huh? It was a while back. Anyway, me and Mikey here were both running with different crew back then into different shit. But we knew each other. I guess I would have been about your age. He said, pointing down at me. So one day, the fish tank has just been emptied out into the pot, and there's new fish with them. That immediately started turning head. It was playing checkers on the tier upstairs where they all came walking through the gates, looking like a bunch of loose little lambs down there on the range. They came toddling in behind a couple of the hack, and at the end of the line is the prettiest little sweet boy this whole penitentiary had ever seen. I don't play no grab ass like a Coltrane up there, but this kid, he was, I don't know, almost like an angel or something. He was too perfect, like a picture out of a magazine. You know, slender and fair haired, teeny bopper, heartthrob material. Yeah, the kid was pretty alright, and he looked like he'd be easy to punk. Big Rob took a moment to pause and force back a swing of the awful, cloying porno, a nauseous blend of fermented food, sugar packet, and yeast. As he grimly swallowed it down, Mikey jumped in and continued the story. The new fish immediately drove the whole pot completely fucking nuts. The wolves were losing their mind, for real. The guards were looking worried. A pretty kid like that can cause a lot of hard feeling between the bull. Hard feeling usually turn into murder, so they released the other fishes to the care of the boss at the guard hut. Then hustled the pretty boy of the protective custody. Post fucking hases. They kept him there for a few days, but the wolf didn't forget about him. Not for a moment. All the time they're asking about the kid to the trusted who had access to PC. They're asking if the kid lonely, if he wants a candy bar, or a fuck book, or a baggie of fucking horses. Whatever the kid might possibly want. They're handing the trusty love note to give to him. Money, weed, all kind of shit. Finally, a con named Holbrook called in some heavy favors, and the hack moved the kid back into the pot. More to the point, into Holbrook's self. I remember watching as the hack walked the young fellas across the pot and up the stairs to his new home. The kid had no expression in this whole wide blue eye, none at all, just blank. Holbrook was a big, greasy son of a bitch. Real nasty, you could smell him from 20 feet away. Complete psycho. That guy, man, I'll tell ya. Watching as Brookie grind and waited at the door of his cell for his new little bunk buddy to arrive. Hell, it's made me feel sorry for the kid. He was planning to do bad thing to the boy. You could see it in that grin. He was gonna hurt and no expression at all. True on that kid face. I remember thinking that the fishies was either brave as fuck or just too stupid to understand what was in store for him. Rob tossed back the rest of the hooch in his Dixie cup and tried not to gag. God, this shit's just fucking awful. Who brewed this? His voice sounded dry and burned. Our fine neighbors just down the hall. That's who, Mikey Chungos. They managed to hide it in the toilet tank long enough to get finished. And holy Jesus, and it nasty. Fuck, I think I'm going blind already. Hutch hid out his cup and Mikey poured him another gurd out of the plastic bag, taking care to make sure that the socks he was using as a filter didn't slip out and spill rotting fruit cocktail all over the bunk. I tried a slip of mine and almost reaches. They all had a good hearty hair at this, except for Richie's. I guess Richie's was still laying on the floor, his eyelid fluttering and twitching. It broke more than a few hearts to see Holbrook get his dirty hooks into the kid first. He would wreck the kid assholes and destroy his soul. That was the general consensus. Come morning, they'll be rotting the kid out to the infamy and afterward probably stick him back into PC for a 24-hour suicide watch. Even if he did come back to the pot again, no one would want the kid, not after the permanent damage that Brookies was liable to do to him. See how lucky you are, Coltrane said to the Remy, and the little Frenchman smiled down at his nail in response. Then keep feeling them delicacy with all this concentration. Every now and then, I wonder if Remy was already planning a flirtation and indiscretions that would indefinitely result in Coltrane's murder. His skull smashed with a 20-pound dumbbell in the weight pit. Coltrane's the bull queer who had taken Remy's manhood and eventually transformed him into something that he probably never wanted to be. Thinking about it now, I'm pretty sure he was, and I can't blame him for it. Rob told us. I heard screaming that night. It was muffled, but I could still hear it. So did my Sally back then. It was old Johnny Francini. I whispered up at him, "Hey, you hear that shit, man? Fuck, that awful." And he answered, real matter of fact, that boy he had knew it was coming. Hey, he too pretty like a girl to be here in this place. He should have never come here. As if the guy had fucking volunteered or something. I just shook my head and told Johnny to go to sleep. I felt so bad for the kid, you know. I think that was one of the worst nights I ever had in here. I heard it too, Mikey interjected. I think we all did, including the boss on duty that night, but no one went to check on him. Cursed money making the fucking rule around here. Not the warden or the government, it's money. I don't doubt that the sick fuck offered big coins for the kids, and some cold son of a bitch sold him without a second thought. Hutch not sorry. Money or whore, that's okay too, cause there's thing I call karma too. When morning came, lo and behold, Brookie Ann standing outside her cell, waiting to be accounted for. Neither is the kid. A whisper popped up real quick and spread down the line like the breeze, and it said, Holbrook went ape shit on the kid last night. I'll kill him. He waiting in his cage for the ERT to come in and bust his head. The boss doing the head cow paws at Holbrook's cell and even Khan craned his head to see what was gonna happen next. All of us in unison. I seen the hack pull out his radio with one hand and his club with the others. He started talking real fast into his radio. At the same time, he slowly walking toward the door of Brookie's cell with his club posed to bash a skull in, like he trying to ward someone's off. He started yelling for the other hack to get the fuck over here pronto. They all came tunneling past with their keys, jangling in their boots clumping, and then we all got ordered to step back into our cell with empty bellies. I heard them down there at Brookie's cell, yelling into their radio and stomping around, and then I heard someone bath. I heard the puke splatter on the tillies. We had to stay in our cell for a few hours, and there was a lot of bitching. I remember being completely pissed at Holbrook. Me and Johnny Eve, we assumed that he gone psycho on the new fish and cut the kid's throat while he was fucking him, or some shit like that. But then some of the emergency response guy came past, wheeling a gurney, and when they wheeled it past us again, you could have knocked me flat with a pea shutter, because it was Holbrook strapped in there. Not the kid. I only saw him for a few seconds, but I remember that his face was fucked. It was mostly gone, stripped right down to bloody sinew and bone. No skin or muscle left. It was fucking gruesome. I kinda gasped out loud, and even close-mouthed, crook-nosed old Johnny Francini had to look twice and say, what the fuck? The only ways I knew it was him was the hair, a big greasy mop of it, like a caveman. The sheet covering the body was soaked right through with his blood. I think that the rest of him had matched his face. Nick whistled and said, "Fuck man, that's hardcore." Then sparked another joy. We four developers had almost forgotten about the discomfort of our gnome behind and twinkling feet. We are forgetting the lockdown and the power outage, and even Paul Stadler, who not only died a violent death, but had also died with his ass blocked up by a cystic sore the size of a man's fist. Mikey and Hutch were telling a story and we were living it. You know what I mean? We were like there. Mikey said, "Must been 5 minutes later. The cops are rolling this crazy looking thing down the block, and I'm like, what the fuck is that?" to my Sally, but he don't know either. Before too long, they roll it past again, and I'm like, oh shit, look at this. You ever see Silence of the Lamb? The dolly cart thing that they strap Anthony Hopkins into when they're moving him? Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And they got the kid strapped into it, bike mask and everything. And the kid is just soaking blood. Man, it was dripping off his clothes, and I could hear it pattering on the floor behind him. It left a trail on the floor. They let us out for breakfast about a half hour after that, but by then it was almost lunch, and we got served a fuck up mix of warm lunch and cold breakfast. There was more talking going on than eating too, and everyone was saying the same thing. We were all saying, what the fuck did the kid do to? And most people thought that he must gotten hold of Brookie's chief somehow, then slide the fucker shit right off, wetted him right down to the bone. But Brookie was a really big dude, and the guy was a crazy motherfucker. How skinny little bitch like that could have overpowered a bad dude like Holbrook so easy? Well, we didn't know. The joy traveled across the floor, fork, and was then handed up to the bunk. Mikey's head to it hard and made that funny choking noise that older guy sometimes do when holding in a big talk nostril and strangled. He gave Nicky the thumbs up and blast out smoke little grease old dragon. Shit, pretty good, Nicky. Good score. Gotta get some more of that. So, yeah, the kid, he got it rolled off to the hole on his fucking Hannibal Lecter dolly, and they had him on a super tight lockdown. No bodies even catches a glimpses of him. They had the kid on a 24-hour watch, and the whole work. A couple trustees tried asking the hack what happened with him and Brookie, and they got told to mind their own business and mop the fucking floor. The kid was in the hole for a week, then two, then a month. All the while, and no one heard a peep about him getting charged with murder. There was a rumor going around that the coroner said in his report that Holbrook had died from a heart attack. Maybe his heart seeing up was the thing that actually killed him. Sure, but there wasn't any mention of the way he'd been cropped up like Sunday turkey. Not at all. Mikey poured himself another round of refreshment, and the sting of the open bag made my eyes water. Hutch smiled a little at action with no real humor behind it. Well tongue were waging, as they tend to do, and pretty soon people were saying that maybe the kid wasn't natural, that he did brunky in his teeth, that he ate the fuckers alive, like some sort of monster. Guy were even saying that the priest paid him a visit in the hole and ended up living with tear in his eye. Actually fucking crying and shit. Wouldn't say what happens, just that he didn't want to talk to the kid. Never again. He quit working here not longer after that happened. Just up and quit. And I heard that the padres end up selling his houses and moving away, like across the country. Somewhere far, far away. Mikey's iron gray beard spread with a slight grin of his own. Now here, where shits get really weird. Big Rob grunted. Billy Sherman's and how hard on the joints, decimating it to a smoldering ember between his thick finger. Yeah, him, Billy Sherman's. He was a hack who worked the night shift. And I'll tell you something, he was just as dirty as they come. Fucking guy wasn't just on the take. He was the take. You know what I'm saying? He was as much a gangster as any of boys in here. He controlled what came into the pants, and when and who got it, and how much they got. The dude squeezed out whatever competition he had from the other cops that were playing the game by any means available. He set them up to get fired, paid to have him shit kicked by the bikers. You name it, he was a complete fucking asshole, but he was also real good at getting you what you wanted for a price. Well, it's a fact that people love a mystery, especially people who aren't got fuck all to do with their time. A few guys put together some cash, and they came to Billy, 'cause if anyone could find the answer to their question, Billy Sherman could. Billy laughed and tell them that he loved to take their money, but he couldn't do that what they were asking. He say the weird little bastard didn't have no file, as far as I can tell. I don't know who he was, why he came here, or where he came from. No one does, and that's the goddamn truth. The guy called him a bullshitter, and Billy got serious on them. He narrowed his eye and said to him, "You guys don't think I tried to fight out for myself already, huh?" Far as I can tell, the kid just sort of pooped up into the fish tank out the thin air. Looked to me like everyone just kept possessing him along, 'cause no one wanted to admit that they didn't know who the fucking kid was. Call me a liar again, and I'll beat the fear of God into you. It was clear that they weren't gonna get anywhere with Billy, so the guy? What kid? Wait a minute, man. Which one the kid? Richie's eyes looked like black bottomless pool. I remember that he had already sunk deep into the mindless tar pit of addiction. By then, he was past the point of no return. You could see it in his eye. "Shut up, dummy!" Rob turned to Mikey and made a gesture that said pleasure. Continue. Mikey gave Rich a cold stare, then said, so the guy gave out and said, "Fuck it, then," and that's for a while. Life goes on. Then the days come when Billy slides up to one of the cons while he's standing in the morning child line and tell him that he found some information on the fish. If anyone still cared to know, Billy was looking bad. They said he looked tired and scarred. That night, Billy come to see the guy in his cell. After light outs, he asked the guy for a smoke. And Billy had quit smoking years ago. Billy said to him, "I don't want any money for this. Keep your loosey fucking money. I don't want to be the only one that can't sleep at night." He saw, "You piece of shit got him into my head, and I couldn't get him out. Fuck you for doing that. Fuck you people sideways. The guy said that Billy Thurman's hands were shaking so fucking bad that he could hardly get his smoke lit. Billy's told the con that curiously had been eating him fucking alive, so he spent some time thinking on how to go about getting one he wanted. Then he picked his mark. Billy always had his ear to the ground. You know the type. He knew this and that's who did what and where and why. He knew stuff about people. He knew that one of the suits in the office had a coke habit, the kind of raging habit that most people can't afford for long. He also knew that the suit and the warden were both batching the same chick. The warden secretary Billy gave him and quarter once of good rock cocaine and told him what he wanted. He promised to shoot the guy at 8 ball on top of what he already gave him. If the guy could deliver the good, the suit came back to him a few days later with a sniffle and a 5-floater that looked older than the Bible. It was made out of some kind of rope, clumbering old cardboard, dry as dust. The office staff say that the warden secretary told him where to find it, locked up in the cabinet in the warden's office. He said that he put himself in a kind of danger to get it, and he wanted more than a ball for his troubles. He wanted more than a quarter, too. Billy told him that he could either take the ball or Billy could let the warden know that one of his minions wasn't just a coke-hated and a thief, but he was dipping his wig into the warden honeypot too. Billy told the suit that the ass fucking the warden would give him wouldn't be anymore. The ass badass, the ones the wolf would deliver. The guy shut his yap, took his 8 ball, and they parted away. So, in between drag of his smoke, Billy tells the cons that the first document in the folder were pages taken from a court transcript some Blackwater courthouse sitting way out in cow country. They were handwritten with an old-time pen. Billy said, you know, the kinds that you had to dip in a fucking inkwell, then pat dry against the bottle so the shit didn't smear. That's how old the thing was. All the date and the kid name were scrabbled out, Billy said, but he figured that the first document in the folder were from the late 1800s. Nick snorted. What? That's not even possible. Michael shunk it. It is what it is, Nicky. The transcript said that the kid had been charged with multiple murder, practicing satanic rites, cannibalism, arson, mayhem. He was only 16 years old when they tried him. The prosecutor wanted to hang him for his crime, but the defense lawyer that the crown had appointed, some greasy little fuckers, he agreed it would be godly to let the kid live out the rest of his day in jail, seeing as how the kid was known to be an orphaned Wargan who raised himself in the wood. No moral guidance in the wood. That was the argument. The injury ended up getting all poisonous, and they commuted the kid dead with the rope to a life sentence. They shipped him off to the cling, and that's Wally's first night. He killed his cellmate, killed him with his nail and teeth, and then he ate the poor son of a bitch. Coltrane looked disturbed. Holy fuck, this is horror movie stuff. I'm sorry, but you guys have gonna be shitting us. Mikey struggled again. Kinda wish I was, but I'm not according to Billy Thurman. Anyway, Billy said that they struck the kid in the loony bin for the criminal insane after he ate his cellies, put him in a straitjacket. At some point, the quack realized that the usual treatment wasn't working for shit, so they decided to give the kid a lobotomy. He was out like a light from the ether, and they were just getting ready to start when the kid suddenly break his arm, restrain, and sink his teeth into the late sergeant's throat, just like a goddamn wolf, rip it right out. There's no way that he should have still been conscious, let alone being able to snap those thick bands of leather, but he was, and he did. Wait, I heard it. Hart said after he killed the quack, they put the kid back on the stand, and this time he got 12 votes for dead. They took him to the town square and marched the kid up to the gallows, with all the townspeople screaming and throwing moldy bread and cow shit at him. He was laughing at them. The hangman put the rope around his neck and asked the kid if he has any last repentant words to share with the crowd. The kid said loud and clear, There's nothing to repent in doing what you want. I'll fuck your mother's ass and fry up her heart if I wanted to, and after I was done picking my teeth, I wouldn't so much as swat her a blessing. Why should I? So the cops beat on the kid with their club a bit, put the hood on the little fuckers, and the hangman pulls the lever. But the trapdoors wouldn't open. He fiddled with it and tries 3 more times, and each time the fucking door wouldn't swing open. They didn't know what to do. Otherwise, the kid was laughing and cursing at them and praising the devil, just being a general pain in the ass. People were screaming for him to swing. It was getting ugly out there and fast, so someone get the bright idea that they could just put the kid up against a wall and shoot him and be done with it. Only that didn't work either, Mikey said then. His words were becoming thick and slurred. It sounded like the hooch was starting to do the trick. They put the kid up against a brick wall, and 5 cops took aim. 5 cops pulled the trigger, and 5 guns misfired. They tried again, and the same shit happened again. By now, the people watching were getting spooked. The crowd of farmers and mill workers who came out to watch the kid hang, they all suddenly had place to go. Everyone left, and the Lord's player was on more than a few set of lips as they went. I'll bet when everyone was gone, the cops packed the kid back into the wagon because there was nothing else they could do. They took him back into the courthouse, and after some debating behind closed doors, the judge had him sent to a different jail, where he was locked up in an unused room in the basement. Then they boarded up the door, and then, for good measure, they break the whole thing over. Regis attempted to focus his eye up at Mikey and asked, Can they really do that, man? Just put someone in a hole and break the fucker over. Nick spoke up. His voice was hoarse. Maybe not this day, but we're talking back when a lot of people didn't even have a birth certificate. Sure, they could done that. Whoever knows. He lit another joint and passed it. So what, man? They just left the crazy little fucker there to die. Reggie appeared to be in the grip of the double species of moral outrage. Another good question, Reggie. Maybe you haven't killed every single brain cell yet. After all, Mikey slunk back some more of the noxious hooch and grimace. Billy Truman said that there was only 2 other documents in the folder. An extremely fucking old mugshot and a report to the Board of Correction from a sanitation engineer. It was written sometimes in the 50s. He'd been down in the old basement of the very same prison where they wore up the kid. He was down there shaking out the shit pipe. It didn't have fuck all to do with what he was looking for. But the engineer mentioned in his report that he found a brick over doorway down there. Curiously got the better of him, and he tore away the crumbling old brick with a crowbar, pried the board off, and pulled the door open. Do you know what he found? A skeleton? Richie muttered. He was struggling to keep his eye from slitting shut. No, nothing. That's what he found. When he forced the door open, the room was empty. We all took a few months to digest this. And then Bulldog ate his gun. Don't forget what about that. Hutch rumbled. He handed the J back over to Nicky. Nick curled his lip in disgust. Who slobbered on this shit? He demanded. It's wet as fuck. Gross, man. Fucking gross. No one owned up to the deed. Nick started to bitch about it some more, and Hutch gave them that look. The one that said shut up immediately or regret it. Nick shut up. Mikey snickered. Thank you, Kylie, Hutch and Nicky. Come on, kiddo. Just pinch off the wet part and stop your bitching anyhow. That fucking prick Bulldog. He was one of the least loved hack in the entire history of this joint. A real genius died in the whole piece of shit. He was still a few years south of retiring when this all happened in late 50s. I'll say a huge fat red-faced motherfuckers. He was meaner than fuck. His blood pressure was right up the scale all the time. There wasn't nothing he liked better than to find an excuse to smash some unfortunate bastard upside the head. He'd do it with a sock full of quarters. that he kept hanging on his belt. When you heard the jiggling of the chain, you straightened up and stopped fucking around until it was gone. If that nasty old fuck was in a mood, well, you steered clear and you keep your big yapper shut. So, they put this fucking guy on watch in front of the kid's cell during the graveyard shift, right? He was all alone too. No partner or nothing. I guess the other hack didn't like the fat mouthy fuck eater. There he was, night after night. Just him and this creepy fucking kid. All night long. Normally this wouldn't have been very good for the con being watched. Being alone with a tried, grumpy bulldog and no witnesses. It would have been a long season in hell for most cons. But the fish wasn't the usual white boy's dummy. We get in there. You know what I mean, like a kid who got mixed up with something stupid, then wasn't rich enough to buy this way out of it. Not this fish, he was something else entirely. Mikey paused to force down a big gird of pruno and Hatch jumped in. Well, oi, bulldog only lasts for about a month before he goes to this shift supervisor and requests that he be taking off the watch. The hate screw of his door was open a bit and some dude named Tag or Rack, some shit like that. I can't remember anyway. He supposedly overheard most of the conversation while he was waiting to see the warden. Why was he waiting to see the warden? Richie mumbled. As per usual with Richie, he wasn't really getting the main focus of the story. Fucking ratting on someone, right? Fucking goof. Hate those fuckers. Rat need to get hurt. Bro, fucking rat need to get... Jesus, Richie, go on the nut or something, would ya? You're a waste of skin. Hatch looked dangerously displeased. Richie's got a big, goony grin and whispered, fucking rat, toad. Hatch frowned at him thunderously, then continued, so Tag or Rack, or whatever here bulldog say, that he wants up the watch. His boss asked him why and he won't say just that he tried and he doesn't like watching the kid. Boss asked if he want a partner and bulldog say nope, he just want off the goddamn watch and that's that. So the head screw huff and puff and blow him off. He gave Bulldog some shitty speech about not wanting to abruptly change everyone's schedule for one fucking guy. And how if he did do that, little Johnny wouldn't see his daddy up in the fucking stand at his neckball games, and it would fuck him up for life. You know, Gatlin the fat prick, and all that sort of things. Then he tell Bulldog no and send him on his way. So Bulldog went home and he drank most of a bottle of whiskey, then stuck his service pistol in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Nicky Roach the allegedly slopped on joint and blew out a tremendous lungful of smoke. There was no way that the smell of the drink wasn't roaring through the whole goddamn pot by then, but none of us were concerned about it. If everyone was behaving themselves, the CEOs would leave us to our wives in peace. The situation was violated enough already. Mikey piped up and said, it's a sad fucking thing, you know. When one of us string ourselves up or get his hand on a razor blade, no one give a fuck. The hack laughed at Shah because your boy lets go and you fucking shit yourself when you die. And that's your obituary. Life goes on and no one give you a second toll. But this asshole sticks a gun in his yapper and blow his brain out the top of his head, and hell, suddenly he's a hero. There was even a big article in the local paper about how the stress of being correction officers cause depression and blah 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 sensitive soul and handle the gritty reality of working with drug out as fucking convict. It was kinda laughable really. However, wrote that article didn't know Bulldog personality, that's for sure. Hunch interjected, but the fucking newspaper didn't mention nothing about what actually drove the piggy to pull the trigger and withdraw his own skull. Fuck no! No mention of the kid at all. The kid was the warden's nasty little secret, because they still didn't know who the fuck the kid was or where he came from, and one way or another, the creepy little bastard was making people dead. All they had to go on was an old court document that's read like a horror book, a passing mention in a sanitation report, and a black and white picture of someone who looked like the kid, but couldn't possibly be the kid. I was suddenly aware that I was getting a bit freaked out in the soft red gloom stoned out of my tree. Every word that Mikey and Hutch uttered seemed frighteningly possible. I cleared my throat and announced, "I'm gonna tell you guys, this is a fuck up story. I'm getting creeped out down here." Hunch blinked down at me with inebriated surprise. "Shit, I forgot that you were even down there. Quiet little fucker. Ain't hey, more probably in your cup, my friend." I still hadn't managed to finish my first helping of the wild stuff. I shook my head and finished up Nicky's double instead. Mikey lapsed into silence, and we were silent with him, even Richie, in the silence. "Something drawn on me," I said. "Hey, Mikey, when they brought the kid to a different jail and wore him up after they couldn't execute him, that was this place, wasn't it? When you guys first saw him, he wasn't a new fish at all. The kid was the oldest con in this entire joint." "This one pretty smart, Mikey," Hutch said. "Compared to Richie, he's a fucking scholar. We should make him our treasurers or something. What do you think?" "We ain't got nothing to treasure here, old man. Not in this fucking shithole." Mikey poured himself another shot of the eye-watering concoction in the back. "Yeah, you got buddy. According to Billy Thurman, it was right underneath this very building." He let out a raspy sigh and hosted aloft his Dixie cup of hooch. "To Billy Thurman," he said. "I sincerely hope God took it easy on you." "How he died?" Nick gasped, and Mikey flashed that humorless smile again. "Not long after Bulldog ate some lads, we woke up to the sound gunshot in the middle of the night again. They found Billy Thurman dead in the CO locker room. His brain and bit of his skull was sliding down the wall beside his body like snail. The coroner declared that it was another suicide, but here's the thing. They found 5 chunks of lead embedded in the wall, all at chest height, and one in his brain. There was a full cup of coffee spilled on the floor beside him, and he still had a vacation request form clutched in his free hand. Mikey leaned back against the wall and let out a scornful gust of air. So, according to the official report, here's Billy sipping on a fresh coffee, just about to go to the office and request some vacation time, when suddenly, right then and there, with no warning or reason, he decided to shoot himself. But before he does that, he fired all the bullets in his service pistol into the wall, except for the one that he fired through his own temple. That's a hell of an odd way to commit suicide, don't you think? Nick looked disturbed. "The kid came for him. That's what's happening, isn't it?" He appeared very young and very vulnerable in the dim, crimson light, his face unlight and guileless. It got up of itself, and it was coming for him. The cop tried to shoot it, then turned the gun on himself before it could. "Get at him!" "Can't say for sure. Nicky's the only guy who can. It's 13 years in his grave." Remy tentatively cleared his throat from the top bunk. "You said something to Hutch about the power going out before, and something that happened when it did. What were you talking about?" "Nah, maybe we shouldn't get into that tonight." "Hell, might as well tell him the rest." Hutch rumbled. "Gone this far, haven't we? A week after Billy bit the dust, a storm rolled in and knocked the power out, clear across the country. We were all herded into our cell and told to shut up and fucking behave. A lot of the hack couldn't make it into work that night on account of the road being a fuck up with accident and torrential rain and shit. So the bosses who did make it to work were all carrying heavy firepower. They made it clear that they weren't going to fuck around if somebody got out of hands." Right around midnight, I heard a shotgun goes off somewhere on the other side of the pens. Can't mistake that sound if you're familiar to it. I was wide awake and on my feet in a heartbeat, then sort of muffled and far away. I heard something screaming. There was a boss standing nearby myself, and over his radio and voice as squawking, He's out of his cell, and he killed Emsley. He's ripping everyone apart. Get your ass over the solar alley, now!" The hack took off running, and I turned to Johnny Francini, but he stole the words right out of my mouth. He said, "The boy, he is loose. This is bad." It was dark in there, but I'm pretty sure I saw Johnny cross himself. Mikey's eye glittered at us in the smooth semi-darkness, glassy from the drink and white from the memory on his left. There was a second gunshot, and then a whole lot more. They echoed and boomed, and scarred us shitless. When they traveled off, we heard more screaming. It sounded like animal at a slaughterhouse, squealing and buckling while they breathed their last. Me, my Sally, we're fucking hiding in the corner with a mattress in front of us. We didn't know what was happening. Just as the hack had tried to shoot something, and they didn't fucking succeed. I'm not afraid to admit it. I was shitting my pants. I heard feet come slapping against the cement, and then 3 hacks sprint past our cell. Hans said they weren't just running, they were fucking sprinting, hauling ass like Olympians. I seen their face for a second, and they were wild with fear. I've never seen anyone look like that before or since. Everyone was huddling as they passed, asking them what the fuck was going on. They didn't answer. They didn't even hear us. They just ran on by and kept going. After a few minutes, a 4th guy come along, and he living real bad, using his rifle as a clutch. He got left behind, I guess. The hack was looking over his shoulder a lot and saw a jock hopping as fast as he could manage. He was leaving a trail of blood behind him. The hack uniform was shredded and torn on one side of his body, flapping around like a rag. I yelled at him, "Hey, what the fuck happened to you guys? What's going on?" They stopped in front of our cell. I could see the guy a little better now, and I wish I hadn't. It was Amsley. He wasn't dead after all, at least not yet. His right arm had been shredded to almost nothing. I mean, it was just a few flapping pieces of meat and stringy shit, oozing blood and barely holding the bone together. His right thigh was missing, huge chunk of meat too, and most of the foot. The guy's face was gray from blood loss. His eyes were like a doll, like twin pieces of round, murky glasses. He was in shock. He moved his mouth, trying to find some word, then said, "I think I'm dying." Then he started whooping again. There was a puddle of blood on the floor where he had stopped. "Okay, that's enough," Remy said, and his voice quieted a little. "I don't want to hear any more." "I don't remember asking if you did," Mikey raps. Let me push his pain that left and was silence. Hodge continued. "I heard something else coming. Then it sounded like something running on all fours, something with claws. I backed up against the wall as far away as I could go, and Johnny covered down into his bunk with his blanket, pulled up around his face. It came in fast and ripped past my cell, just a fucking blur of arm and leg. About 10 seconds later, I hear Amsley start wailing like a siren. It was awful. Those were death screams, man. Nothing else can force a living creatures to let out such awful fucking sound. It took me a moment to understand that Amsley wasn't just screaming. He was saying something. He was saying, "Mommy, it's eating me! Mommy, it's eating me!" Then I realized that I was screaming right along with him. So was Johnny. The whole pod was screaming. You remember that, Mikey? All of us 200 murderers and stick-up men fucking screaming in unison like little girl. "I won't ever forget that. Not ever," Mikey said quietly. The hack finally stopped making noise, and we all did too. You could almost taste the terror in the air, sharp and bitter. I could smell Amsley blood, that coppery smell that get in your throat and make you want to reach. It was so quiet, so as a tomb. You could have heard a pin drop, and then slowly, so slowly, a figure comes strolling into view of the rain. It was the kid. He was red from head to toe, completely covered in blood and gut and shred of stuff that keeps sliding off of him and dropping onto the floor. He wandered right down the middle of the rain, and he was carrying Amsley's head by the hair, dangling beside his leg as he walked. I watched him as he passed by, and I didn't breathe. No once did I even fucking dare to breathe. The kid ambled on up to the hack shack, just as casual as could be, and he put Amsley's head up on the ledge of the window. Then he walked out into the middle of the rain, raised his arm and pointed at all of us, each individual cell, like he was marking us, each and every one, marking us for death. When he was done, the kid walked back the way he came, and he disappeared from view. That was the last anyone ever saw of him. He was just gone. There was a full minute of silence. Finally I spoke up. Why the fuck did I never hear anything about this before? How? This should have been everywhere. The news, TV, crime shows, fucking everywhere. Nick chimed in and said, I never heard nothing about this either and used to love those fucking crime shows. No, you never heard nothing about that. But you might have heard something about a prison riot, Mikey said. According to the newspaper, the cons took advantage of the power outage and went ape shit for a few hours. Most of the guards on duty died trying to stop us, or so the story goes. The government funded a few new electronic locking system, all because of what happened that night. I thought about this for a moment, then said, I don't know. What don't you know, huh? I'll fucking tell you the rest. How's that? Hutch glared at me, and his narrow eye slammed it phantom punches into my face. I froze. The three hacks that we seen running for their life, they ran right into the arms of the SWAT teams, who just got in on the scene. With their guns drawn, the cops busted through the gates, and they found what was left of Amsley first. They ignored our hole and followed the blood trail. They found the rest of them in the hallway that ran down the middle of Solitary, lying in a raw heap with the blood congealing in a pool beneath the body like gravy. All the cell doors had been ripped away from their hinge, and the cons inside had been torn into pieces. From what I heard, it took a crime scene clean-up crew 6 days to clean out that wing, and even after that, the cons and the hack were fighting dried up bit of flesh and bone for months on end. We told her what happened, and you can believe it or not, I don't give a fuck, and neither does Mikey. Asked around if you wanna. There's some long timer here that might talk about it. If you give it something to loosen their lips, once again, I don't give a fuck. This whole pod had nightmares for a long time. I'm probably gonna have them till the day I die. And I doubled am the only one. There's something within these fucking walls that look human, but isn't. It's something that you don't want to meet, and believe me, you better hope you never do. Hutch stopped talking then, and as the hour was late and we were all pretty fucked up, the silence soon turned to sleep. I recall dreaming of a far-haired young man who stood among us as we slept, silent as a shadow. His eyes were completely black in the fitable glow of the emergency lights. His expression war-paced and hungry. I remember that in the dream I was very afraid that the boy would sense that I was not actually asleep. If he discovered that I was awake, he'd warn me. I remember this quite clearly. We awoke earlier in the morning to the pitiful sound of a young sick Richie drying heavily into the toilet. The lights were back on and the lockdown was over. Richie wasn't the only one who was feeling like shit that morning. We were all in pretty rough shape, especially us for Falk, sleeping in a sitting position on cold concrete made for a stiff, painful morning. None of us had much to say. We all sat and smoked and waited for the hack to do morning head counts. I wondered if pounding hand over weren't the only reason for that. I suspected that I wasn't the only one whose sleep had been disturbed by the fair-haired specter, a thing that should have ceased to walk the earth years before, but had not a thing with a terrible appetite. The cop finally came around and let us out of our cage. They pointedly did not perform the morning cell check. If they had, there simply wouldn't have been enough cell in solidarity to confine all the rule breakers. We all trooped off to stand in the child line, expect Richie, who opted to stay behind and undoubtedly indulged in a snort or two. And that's pretty much where the story ends. Well, almost. I was released a year early for good behavior. During the rest of my time there, most of Mikey's crew were paroled either through the front door or the back. Richie was the first one to get wheeled out the back way. Then, 8 months later, Coltrane's skull was pounded into the new and messy format, and he followed Richie out the back door. 6 months before I was uncaged, Big Rob Hutch had a heart attack while walking up the stair that led to the tier above our. He fell backward, clenching his chest, and was dead before he somersaulted over the last few steps and landed at the bottom. So, for a while, it was just me, Mikey, Nick, and a few casual homeboys. It got boring. The crew unraveled at the seam, and by the time I was paroled, It had ceased to exist. A few months after my divorce was finalized, I got nostalgic one night and decided to try and find Mikey's online. So enough, I did. Through his obituary, he died in hospital of a short illness not long after I was released. Remy was also deceased. The victim was a shower room, rape and stabbing. And Nicky, I discovered that he was in a mental institution. I visited him in there. Once I'd rather be in jail any day. Most of the patients I saw there were zombies, chemically bitch slapped into subservience by their meds. There were a few others who were just strange. Their gaze made me feel unsafe, and for Christ's sake, I did time in a federal penitentiary. I was shown to where Nicky sat by himself at a table, and he instantly recognized me. We greeted each other like old friends and made small talk just like anyone would. He seemed completely normal to me. I didn't understand why he was in there until I mentioned Hutch. What do you think happened to Hutch? Exactly, I asked him, and his relaxed grin suddenly became a twist grimace of fear. He seized me by the front of my jacket and held me close, and his eye burned bright with the fire of insanity. He hissed. The kid pushed him down the stair. It was a fucking heart attack. That's a cover-up. The kid got Mikey too. It ate everything but his head. It left his head on his fucking pillow. The other lies grabbed Nicky and pried him off of me, and they dragged him away while he screamed and flattened and twisted in their iron grip. I watched this with an open mouth and my heart's pounding. Then I went home and got very, very drunk. Somewhere within those prison walls, there is a thing that hungers, and sometimes it feeds. I don't expect you to believe this any more than I did. But you know what? On a night like this, with this wind howling and the fine hairs standing up on my neck, I couldn't care less what you believe. And if you were ever unfortunate enough to meet him face to face, well, I'll be the kid who wouldn't care what you believe. Etta.